Hi, this is Paul Har from thesaxophonist.org, and I'm here with a playtest and a review of the Retro Revival Shorty soprano saxophone mouthpiece. If you want to talk about gold standard mouthpieces for soprano saxophone players, it is the Selmer Soloist, plain and simple. I have played on one for 30 years because it just produces unrivaled complexity, depth, and control. Especially for an instrument that, because of its size, can be very unwieldy. If you are trying to find these mouthpieces, they are very rare. The prices have gone down a little bit, I think, simply because of scarcity. They used to be upwards of $800 or $900, particularly if on the table it had a number and a circle on it. Selmer has a very unique history with regard to jazz. Most of the mouthpieces have not necessarily been produced as jazz mouthpieces. Nevertheless, they have been very popular amongst jazz players. Soprano players love them because of the color, the control, and the warmth, like I just said. Alto players, they have tried to find the soloist long shank in the size E, and if they can't find one, they'll have the mouthpiece opened up to an E. Why? Well, because Kenny Garrett plays on a Selmer Soloist E. Well, I had the fortune of seeing Kenny Garrett's mouthpiece, which I think was given to him by Pharoah Sanders, and Pharoah took a drill to it. So you can get it in an E all you want, it ain't going to play like Kenny Garrett's mouthpiece. Tenor players love the short shank soloists in a D or an E because the great Joe Henderson played on it, and Sonny Rollins for a while, but most recently Richie Perry, wonderful tenor saxophonist out of New York, plays on a short shank soloist, which, by the way, I understand Retro Revival just released the Shorty tenor version, which we hope to review soon. So back to soprano. If you're a soprano player, this is a great mouthpiece to have. Now, Selmer made these mouthpieces mostly in the sizes of C, C star, C double star, and D, and occasionally you can find them E, F, with stars being the half sizes as you go. These mouthpieces are becoming increasingly harder to find online, and when you find them, they're expensive. I had, unfortunately, a student of mine drop a mouthpiece years ago, and it cost $800 to try to find another one. As is typical with vintage hard rubber mouthpieces, the variety and the consistency are not necessarily in, there's tremendous variety within just the C-star line, and the consistency is not always what you expect. Jazz players will mistakenly take the C-stars and the C double stars and have them open to E and F tip openings, even H tip openings, like a .64 opening. And if you're going to do that, you have to really have a great understanding of the soprano saxophone, in my opinion, because soprano is one of those instruments that the slightest little bit of movement of the mouthpiece on the cork can make a big change in pitch. Likewise, what you do internally and externally can make a big difference as far as pitch and stability. So part of the reason why Selmer had so much success in the C-star and the C double star tip openings is the smaller tip openings give you more control, and you want more control on an instrument that has such fluctuation and variety of pitch. So taking a mouthpiece and opening it up to an E or an F can work, but it has to be done by somebody who's really knowledgeable, and it's a crapshoot, to be honest with you. And once it's been altered, it can't be returned back to its original shape. Retro Revival has done an amazing job of recreating the soloist, or what some people refer to as the Shorty, mouthpiece. I'm going to hold up the Retro Revival mouthpiece here, and my beloved soloist, and you can see that the mouthpieces are practically identical. Now, I have to be honest with you, this is the one I was the most skeptical about. Retro Revival does not make these mouthpieces in the small tip openings, in the C star, C double star. The smallest they go is D, and originally I thought that's what they were going to send me. And when I started playing on it, I was really surprised by how even and smooth and immediate the soprano mouthpiece played. And I was really blown away. For you classical players out there who might be wondering, could this be a switchover mouthpiece? My first thought was, no, it's a little bit too bright. And then it was when I was cleaning the mouthpiece out, I discovered that they had actually sent me an E. I was blown away by how easy this mouthpiece plays. If you're looking for flexibility and color and projection beyond the natural projection of the soprano, this is a wonderful mouthpiece to try. I'll give you an example. It is remarkably responsive. I can actually double tongue on it, which is great. The tip opening for me, to be honest with you, is a little big for what I use. Like I said, I've spent 30 years on a C double star and on a C star. So an E is a little bit big, but I've been pretty surprised by how easy that I can make the transition. You can produce a wonderful sound on it. You can get a lot of flexibility. Pitch is good. Could you use it as a classical mouthpiece? Or if you do pitch shows? Yeah, I think you could. I wouldn't personally use it in an E, but I would love to try it in a D. My apologies for playing a viola da gamba sonata on a soprano saxophone mouthpiece. But anyhow, it really is amazing. Like I said, I was the most skeptical of this mouthpiece because, not that I don't think the other mouthpieces need to be really refined, but you know, when you get into the soprano saxophone, and there's so few soprano saxophone mouthpieces out there. I mean, everybody has played on a C star or a Selmer mouthpiece. This is really showing your salt. Your skills, in my opinion, is to be able to take something like a Selmer Soloist and say, guess what? We can recreate it and we can make it in great tip sizes and it's going to be free blowing. Yeah, right. They did. They did. In fact, I really want to try a D and see if it's something that I could use for switch hitting of playing. I get a lot of questions and have recently been asked, do you play on, how will it handle synthetic reeds? Well, I don't use synthetic reeds really very often. And what success I've had has been really more along the lines of classical mouthpieces, if you'll bear with me here. But I thought I would show you what it sounds like with a synthetic reed. Now, this is a Legere 3.5 reed, which is pretty hard for this type of mouthpiece, this size, but it works great. Does it sound exactly like Kane? I don't know. You be the judge. It didn't feel much different. And the response has been great. Like I said, I think personally I would love to try the D opening, but if you're looking for something that's a little bit bigger, this is an E and has performed really well. Colleague and friend of mine tried this mouthpiece out in our big band rehearsal last week, and his response was classic. He goes, "I really like this mouthpiece." And he sounded great. He projected through the section. Again, this isn't probably designed for classical players, but I know that this is going to be a question that I get from classical saxophonists, and that is, could this mouthpiece work? Yeah. For jazz players, this is a fantastic mouthpiece, provided you understand how to play a soprano saxophone. If you know how to do that, this is going to be a great tool for you. If you don't, it is not going to make you sound like a good soprano player. It's just going to make you sound like a louder, bad soprano player. So if you know how to use the instrument well and you know what you're looking for and you're looking for great color, the Shorty from Retro Revival is really a great mouthpiece. And it has piqued my interest because I now want to find out what the Shorty tenor saxophone mouthpiece is like. So hopefully we'll get that review. If you want to get a full overview of the reviews that we've done thus far, you can check out our YouTube page, or you can go to www.thesaxophonist.org for a full review of the 5 mouthpieces that we've done. Check out the Retro Revival line if you haven't. Great stuff and wonderful tool for the saxophone player.